Welcome to the Own Your Life podcast, where our goal is to help bring hope, healing, and peace by sharing our experiences and inspiring you to own your life.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Own Your Life podcast. This is episode number 12. We definitely appreciate you guys joining us. This one is going to be a kind of a different special episode, if you will. It's going to be, what would you do if you were not afraid? I mean, this is a big topic for everybody. I think that we've all been afraid at definitely certain times, and especially certain times this year, even with the coronavirus and everything that's going on around us. So, I mean, Ashley's going to jump in right here, and she's going to talk to you about a little bit about a backstory about something she was afraid about, and I'm going to jump into. So here she is.
Hi, everyone. Yes. So I want to start off by talking about a story that this topic really hit me in college. So it was my senior year, and I'm actually looking at it right now. I made a paper with, it was one of my classes. We did all of these personal growth books, and it was the first time that I actually did something like that. And we made a paper, like a poster of the books that we read and things that we got out of each book. And out of Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, very popular book, I got, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I put that question on here. And at the time, honestly, I was in a relationship that I was comfortable, but I was miserable at the same time. And honestly, when I first saw that, what would you do if you were not afraid? It was in my head, it was end that relationship, because it's not serving me anymore. It is not something that I want to continue. And it was really hard because I'd invested a lot of time into it. But at that time, I was done. So I did. I ended that relationship. And honestly, that class changed my life, because definitely would have not met Matt if that would have happened, if I would have stayed with that person. Yeah. So I just feel like that was a very important piece in my life, just hearing that question. And I've referred back to it multiple times, that what would you do if you were not afraid? And I feel like, especially like Matt said, with everything going on, with all of the stuff right now, it's a great question. And so many people are afraid of so many things. And I know we are too. We're totally afraid of certain things that may or may not even happen. So it's really breaking it down and channeling that fear into something that will serve you instead of harming you.
Yeah, I mean, and right now, with everything going on, it kind of reminded me of this Jocko Willink episode that I've watched all the time on YouTube. And he says, good. You know, when something's going wrong, he said, the best thing you can say is good. Because at the end of the day, you know, you can't control everything, but you can control your attitude and your emotions. And when you can really let things happen in your life and really just let things go, I mean, a lot of times the best thing you can say is good to yourself. You know, maybe you didn't get that promotion. Good. Maybe you didn't get the stuff that you really wanted. Good. It gives you an opportunity to get better. It gives you an opportunity to overcome that fear that maybe hold you back, and maybe give you the opportunity to pursue a business that you've been wanting to pursue because you didn't get that promotion. But now you got extra time to maybe pursue that business or pursue that other opportunity, or get better in your relationship, get better in certain areas of your life. It gives you an opportunity to come back and really just be who you need to be and be the next version of yourself. Because I think sometimes we just need to get to the next version of ourselves so we can really make things happen in our life. And I know that Ashley and I have been on this personal growth plan for a long period of time. And it just always gives us the opportunity to just re-engage with each other and to really get that next step that we really want to go to. Absolutely. And I feel like a big way that you can do that is through reflection and asking yourself important questions, because that's what we do. That's how we've grown, is to be able to reflect on things that have happened, to learn from them, and then to move forward. I know Matt and I can both be futuristic. We both have that strength, and sometimes to a fault, to where we can play out crazy scenarios in our head that
the likelihood of them happening is most likely zero. So there can be that end of being afraid as well as thinking so much into the future that you've paralyzed yourself now because you're thinking, oh my gosh, what if this and this happens, or this happens, or this happens? Like, what are we going to do? And it's not that you shouldn't prepare for things, but it can also get to an extreme to where you are, have irrational fears. I know I've definitely have irrational fears every now and then. That sometimes futuristic planning can also be paralyzing because you can be thinking about fears and things that could come up in the future or that may not, and they may never even happen. But I think that's important to acknowledge as well. And another question that I think is important is really, what's holding you back? What's holding you back from doing it is that you're afraid of, or maybe confronting something, or trying a new business, or stepping out on your own, or moving out of, somebody's house or whatever. What's holding you back from doing that? Write those things down and, look at it one by one. It's not like all this change has to happen overnight, but it's definitely a starting place. What is holding you back from doing what you really want to do or being who you really want to be? And a follow-up question to that is, what risk would you take if you were not afraid? What things would you do if you didn't have to worry about, the fear that comes with that?
Absolutely. And I think that for me, I just had to stop thinking about what could go wrong and start thinking about what could go right out of this next decision. Because, whether it's a relationship, a job, whatever it is that you're looking to pursue next, it's just about thinking about what could go right versus what could go wrong. Because I think that, if you're going to take another job, let's say that it's an extra 5 minutes away from your house. Well, that's going to take an extra wear and tear on my car. What if I don't get along with the people? What if the job isn't really what I think it's supposed to be, or whatever it is? Or if it's about a business, how am I going to get the money? What's the next process look like for this? And how's this going to go happen? Sometimes it's just about stepping out and maybe just going out on faith and just saying, hey, you know what? I think this is going to happen for me. And this is what could happen to me if I do this. And instead of just all the what ifs, because you can play the what if game forever. And that's just not good for you or anybody else, because I know that I've played the what if game because I got comfortable in certain areas of my life for a little bit of time. And I could have had extra opportunities. I could have opened multiple businesses. I could have done a lot of different things, but I got comfortable with the money I was making and where I was at right there in my life. And I think that when you can really step out and think about what could happen and what could go right, then things start happening for you. Because even with the relationships I was in before Ashley, I thought that they were always bad. There's always something wrong with the relationship or whatever else is going to happen. But when I actually realized it was me and I stepped out and I realized that this is going to be good for me and this is right for me, and that she was the right person. I just had to be the right person too, though, at the same time. And it was just me thinking positively about that next relationship that made it happen. And, most people, they just get so paralyzed by fear, doubt, and you just need to overcome that and take charge of your life and your world. And then things will start going your way. And just to always make sure that you're looking for the positive things in there, and just make sure you're looking for the good, because the good will happen to you when you want it to and when it's supposed to.
And I think that an important thing is, yes, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, if I could just wish away fear, that'd be great. However, I think that the best way to do that, to overcome fear and doubt, is to go to the root of it. What is the source? What is the source of this fear and doubt? Because I feel like if you can't get to the root of it, it's going to keep showing up over and over and over again. And I know one of the roots for me of having fear is perfection. I've had so many issues with perfection. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. But I feel like it's definitely part of my melancholy personality, and wanting things to be perfect has kept me from acting on them. And I know Matt's going to talk a little bit more about this as well. But I just feel like getting to the root of where this fear is coming from is going to help you the most, because if you don't get the root of what it is, like I said, it's going to keep showing up more and more in your life. And then you could be hopeless, just by having to deal with it all the time and not knowing how to overcome it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question I have for that is that do you have the mental and emotional health to be able to have mastery in your life. And that comes back to the fact of, the perfection. Do you have so much perfection that you need to have everything perfect and lined out? And, does that have to be the case before you ever start? Is that what needs to happen? Or is it the fact that, we just can't go over the fact that we aren't going to have a certain status anymore? You're not going to have that title of being, maybe general manager or whatever title you do have, to sub that out and maybe, have the, owner title for a little while, but the owner is also the janitor. He's also the cook. He's also whatever else business you're going to start. But at the same time, you don't have that status anymore. And maybe you don't have that paycheck anymore. And I think that sometimes the title and the money is a byproduct of who you are, not what it is. And I think that for a long time that, it's all about the house, the car, whatever else, instead of being about who you are and who you can help and who you can actually be. Sometimes you just have to take a step back to take 5 steps forward. And sometimes a step back isn't really that great at that time. And that's a scary thing. I know that it was a scary thing for me to step away from a 6-figure job for a long period of time. Not for a long period, but for a little while at least. That was a scary thing for me because I tied my worth to that job. And my worth is not in a paycheck. My worth is who I am and what I stand for, my values. And I think that that's the biggest part of some part of society today is that I think a lot of folks have their values confused with what society tells them because, society tells them, to think one way, but they should be thinking about what values are the most important to them. Is it their family? Is it, their faith? What is it, the values that are labeled in your life?
And that is a perfect transition because I want to talk about, for me, faith is number one. Faith is the number one thing that will get me through fear. Now, this is just me. You can be whatever, faith background you want to be or not have one. But I feel like if I'm going through something really, really hard and on a daily basis, just to get through every day, that faith is my number one thing. Like I look to God for everything. And when I'm in a hard season or even like this year and how crazy it's been, like this too shall pass. It will pass. We will be back in a time of abundance. It will happen. But it's hard. It's hard to stay with those thoughts because we're so bogged down by a lot of things that we see in society and whatnot, and just, being around other people, maybe negative people, that it can be hard, but you have to stay strong in that. And I know for me, it's just been being really strong in my faith and making sure that I make that a part of my day is how I've overcome a lot of fear. And I think an important thing to realize about fear and being afraid is that fear can actually be a tool, but we can't let it paralyze us. We can't let it control our lives 24/7. And that's why we do need to explore the deeper roots of that fear, and then have something to hold on to when it does happen, because it's going to happen. Maybe not daily, but you're going to have a lot of times that you're afraid. I know we do, but it's what do you go to? What is your first instinct when that fear hits? Do you run away and hide? Do you cope with bad coping mechanisms? Do you eat a lot? Do you drink a lot? Do you smoke? Do you do something, very unhealthy for you? How do you cope with that fear? And maybe think of some ways that you can cope with that in a positive way, and that make fear be the trigger that gets you to do the action that you want to do instead of, a bad habit that maybe you've been doing for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I know that for me, for multiple points in my life, whether it was fear or complacency or anything like that, a lot of times it would just drive me into almost a depression, and then I would turn to alcohol. And I know that Ashley has been like a huge counterpart to that. I mean, she's actually helped me in so many areas with, depression and just alcohol in certain areas of my life that I would run to when things would go wrong. And I know that for me, she's my go-to when things are at their worst, and I think that sometimes you have to have that person in your life that has just been so integral in your life that they are a safe place. They are good for you, that you have that person. And if you don't have that person, that's okay. That's what she's talking about there with faith, is that, God is always there to guide you in those certain times of uncertainty. because there's no better person to turn to than the faith that you have. But if, I think that, we've had that inner walking of faith together, so which has been great. But before that, even before we were saved, I would go to Ashley in those areas of my life that I needed the most, when I was depressed and when I needed help. And I didn't turn to the stuff that was going to continue to tear me down and not build me up. And I think the question is that you need to ask yourself is that how long am I going to stay afraid? How long am I going to stay maybe in the state that I'm in? Am I comfortable and I'm just going to hang out here for a while? Do I need to take the next step, or do I need to reevaluate, maybe what my next steps are? I think that those are all valid questions of what is the next thing for you.
I think that's really powerful, because it's not that, we think that you should avoid fear or ignore fear when it does happen, but have a time limit on it. Like have things around you that can help you snap out of it as well. I know that's definitely easier said than done, but now I'm looking around our office and I see we've got a sign that says, "Let your faith be bigger than your fear." And I know that I have looked up and seen that sign multiple times, and that even just seeing that in my environment can snap me out of, whatever fear that I'm thinking of or letting, play into my life. Just by setting up your environment in a certain way. And I know we did a podcast on environment, that can be really powerful as well. Even just putting little notes to yourself, maybe on your computer, on your laptop, on your mirror in your bathroom, in your car, something like that can also help. When you do have those times that you're scared, that what do you run to? Again, what do you use as a coping mechanism? I feel like that can just be a really powerful tool.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, this reminded me of a quote when we started doing this whole thing. And, some people may not be fans of Mike Tyson. I'm a huge fan of Mike Tyson, just because of the era that I grew up in. But it was one of my favorite quotes of his. It says, "Your fear is your best friend or your worst enemy. It's like fire. If you can control it, it can cook for you, it can heat your house. If you can't control it, it will burn everything around you and destroy you." And I think that when you think of it like that, I mean, a lot of people, when they're faced with something that is just absolutely scary, some people react differently. Some people are like stoked and they're like, yes, this is what I needed to get me going forward. And other people run and hide, like Ashley said. It's a fight or flight type thing. And, that's mentally, it's programmed into our brains. That's what we're mentally programmed to have, is a fight or flight reaction to a lot of different things in our life. And I think that, I've responded both ways in my life. And I think when I ran away from it, that's when I lost the most traction in my life. That's when I didn't accomplish as much as what I wanted to. And then years later, I was like, man, if I would have just tackled that, I would have had a different outcome. But then the same things is that what we always say is that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And because some of the stuff that I didn't take advantage of, I was able to meet Ashley. I was able to have the relationship I wanted to have eventually, but it just wasn't at that time, because for whatever reason, I didn't grow at that time.
Yeah. And I feel like that, just having that question again, that what would you do if you weren't afraid? Because you brought up, when we met, I was terrified. I was terrified to go on a date with Matt. If you guys haven't heard that podcast, I think it's episode 1 or 2, where we talk about how we met. And I was terrified. I didn't want to go on the date because I didn't want anything bad to happen. I was trying to avoid all kinds of, bad scenarios or fear or anything like that. But I was scared at the same time, which is kind of ironic. But I was trying to avoid all of it. And really it comes down to, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Oh, I would go on the date and see how it goes and not, run away from it. And obviously we're married, so I did go on the date, but it didn't go as it was planned originally. But I still acted on that fear instead of running away from it, because I could have said, you know what, no, I'm not really interested in dating anybody right now or whatever, and I kind of just need to be by myself or whatever. I could have had any kind of excuse that I could have said to him, and I'm sure he would have respected that, and that would have been it, and I would have just gone on about my life, and who knows what would have happened. And I'm kind of scared to think about that. I don't really want to think about what would happen if I hadn't met Matt and hadn't agreed, to go on a date with him and go on a second date and everything. I just feel like there's so many times in our lives where there are those turning point moments when we are afraid. And it's, what do you do in those? Do you act on that fear or do you run away from it?
Absolutely. For me, I always think about, courage is just a transaction in the moment. And when you can really look at it as just literally taking a small step and a small just step towards whatever you're wanting to do. It's not necessarily a huge step because we don't want to leap out real far, but at the same time, we have to move. We know that certain things happen and things are going to be scary and things are going to not always go the way you want them to, even when you do react to something that maybe is for you, but it's going to take a little time to maybe get out of that habit, out of that bad wave, out of that job, out of certain things that are maybe holding you back. And we know that there are some bad relationships that are even, a part of that too. But at the same time, you just have to have a little bit of courage and step out on that and just view it as a small transaction into what you really want to do next. And what's the next thing in your life that is really going to help you get to maybe that next promotion, maybe that next job, maybe that next business, maybe whatever it is that you want to go to next.
And in closing, we are not guaranteed tomorrow. I think that's a big thing to think about, is that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So waiting for the right time, or being a perfectionist like I've been and, wanting to do everything perfectly the first time, which is a crazy expectation, and not realistic, can really hurt you because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So we can't be stuck in worry and fear. And we need to act today. We need to act on those dreams today, or making that next decision that you're afraid of. You need to do that today because, we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. And we can only control, what we can control today is our actions. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. We love you all. Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast, rate, review us, subscribe, and remember, own your life because your life is your responsibility. Thank you all for listening. If this added value to you, please click subscribe and rate and review us. You can also find us at Own Your Life Co. on Instagram and Facebook and ownyourlifeco.com. And as always, own your life because your life is your responsibility.